Everything you need to know about Drake's diss track responding to Kendrick Lamar explained in 5 minutes. Drake's song Drop It Give Me 50 dropped on Saturday. It was leaked on social media. Initially, people thought that it was AI before looking at some of the references in the song where he talks about Cash XO, who's the manager of The Weeknd, and Chubbs, who's a bodyguard for OVO, and people realized that direct references like that could not be made by artificial intelligence, so it must be a real record. Also, we know that a couple days earlier, Rory and Mal, shout out to them on their podcast, said that they know about a Drake song coming, and that when they do, people better get their weight up. They gotta drop and give 50.
A lot of you other niggas get prepared to write, because y'all in that shit too.
Drop down and give me 50.
Sound like you heard it.
I didn't hear anything.
So they mentioned the exact same name a couple days earlier. Obviously, it was real. Also, shout out to Rory and Mal for the self-control to not talk about that. They are better than I am, because I would have been telling the whole world that I knew about the Drake diss record before it came out. Now, as for the song itself, Drop and Give Me 50, people think that it's a reference to push-ups. It's actually about Kendrick Lamar's publishing and how he has to give 50% of his money to his original label manager, Anthony Top Tiffiths. You see in the song here, he says, Top told you drop and give me 50, sounding like push-ups, but he's actually saying give me 50% of your publishing, which in the rap game, when you're giving out half your money, when a guy like Drake, who owns all his music and controls the streaming and dominates the business side of things, is making money hand over fist, and you've got to give up half your money, that is right there pretty much a kill shot when it comes to who's bigger and badder and controls the rap game. Now, as for the lyrics themselves, right away he gets into it, calling Kendrick Lamar out for being exceptionally tiny. He says, how you a big stepper when you got a size 7, referencing Mr. Morales and the Big Steppers, his flop album, and saying he's got a size 7 shoe because he is insanely tiny. Kendrick Lamar is like 5'5". I don't think people realize that. And I know that's low-hanging fruit, and it's not exactly clever bars. You don't need to be like a lyricist wordsmith to call him out for that. But when you are battling mano y mano, two guys against each other, and one of them is the size of like a girl or a small boy, you have to hammer that. So throughout the song, he says, you have a small feet, you little fucking midget, pipe down, you pipsqueak. And then he gets into how Kendrick Lamar, despite the reputations of both rappers, how Kendrick Lamar is actually the sellout pop rapper because he did a verse for Maroon 5 and Taylor Swift. It's funny how reputations and perception and PR all become reality, because people would say that Drake is the sellout rapper who's gone pop. However, when you look at it, Kendrick Lamar has done verses for Adam Levine and Taylor Swift. That is way more of a sellout move than anything Drake has ever done. I'm sure Drake has been screaming that for years now, going, what, he's the authentic, real hip-hop and I'm not? He fucking does songs with Maroon 5. He then goes on to mention how it's 20 versus 1 because at this point, the entire rap game seems to have decided to go after Drake. Everybody from Metro Boomin, now Future joining his side. You've got Rick Ross, you've got Nav, you've got The Weeknd, A$AP Rocky. All of these guys decided to come out of nowhere and try to attack Drake, even though they never actually say anything of substance. They don't have the goods on this guy. He's never actually done anything for them to hate him. It's just like, oh, I fucked your girl, and you have ghostwriters, and you're not a real rapper. It's the same thing over and over again. That's how you know it's just petty and envious. So he says, quickly takes care of them. He mentions The Weeknd quickly. He says, Metro Boomin, shut the fuck up and go make beats. But he does go directly in on Rick Ross, saying, you are a 50-year-old criminal informant. The only number one record you ever had was because of me. And then he goes on to mention, you need to go handle your business with, and he blurs it out. And then rhymes the following word with, shout out to the Hooper who does the gritty. So we know what he was rhyming there was Diddy, implying that maybe Rick Ross is caught up in all that weird Diddy party shit. So goes directly at Rick Ross, which makes sense because those two had the most history. Also, a quick little jab at Ja Morant. I believe they fucked the same girl. So he quickly dispenses of all those guys and Rick Ross, saying you guys were bros turned into hoes trying to team up against me, but you're falling like dominoes. Oh, and by the way, I call you the Backpedal Gang because a couple of you have already reached out, which would be unbelievable if some of those guys already turned just like J. Cole did. Which brings me to one of the more important and intriguing parts of this battle that maybe Drake is actually going at J. Cole as well, because there's a point where he's talking about Top again, the guy who takes 50% from Kendrick Lamar, and he said these dudes want to call Top and ask for peace. Now, Kendrick Lamar would not be asking for peace at this point. He says, Top, want to piece it up? Top, want to piece it up? And then he says, nah, pussy, now you're on your own when you speaking up. The only person who would be asking for peace, and the only person we know who already did that, was J. Cole. J. Cole bowed out of this whole battle because he wanted to get a good night's sleep. He was probably the one who called up top and said, we should make peace. So now Drake saying, nah, pussy, now you're on your own when you speaking up, makes me think that he's also taking shots at J. Cole, which would then be out of this fucking world. We're talking pure chaos at the top of the rap game. The big three, they're all going at each other now, or at least two of them while J. Cole goes to sleep. But if Drake was going at Kendrick and J. Cole, oh my God, this is exactly what hip-hop needs. And then the number one bar that you really got to take a look at here, amongst many others that I'm not touching upon, but the highlights here, the number one bar where things might be getting real nasty is I Be With Some Bodyguards Like Whitney. Now, Whitney Houston was in the movie Bodyguards, right? But also, Kendrick Lamar's wife is named Whitney. So, implying that Kendrick Lamar's wife, Whitney, might have fucked some bodyguard. If that's true, that line is truly nuclear. Right up until now, it's still been like, who's the best rapper? But if it's your wife Whitney fucked some bodyguard, that starts to border now on Tupac, that's why I fucked your bitch. That line, very much like Pusha T's Virginia Slim's line where Drake mentioned his wife. If Drake is at it again, and if this is real, and it's truth, and it's not just like, let me mention your wife to piss you off. If there's truth to that, watch the fuck out, because then this thing goes to a whole other level. He finishes the song saying, it's me twice in my big three, so whether he kicked Kendrick Lamar or J. Cole out of there, he's saying it's Drake 2 times to make the big three, which is an unbelievable ending. There's a whole bunch of other rhymes and lines in addition to what I mentioned that makes this a well-rounded song, not just a battle record, which we know is important. He did that with Back to Back. Kendrick Lamar had like that on the charts, so a very good song to keep this battle going. It's important to note that he says, this is not everything I know, don't wake this demon up. So if Drake has more to offer, if this was him holding back, and the next record after Kendrick replies, he has a bigger bomb to drop, especially if it has to do with his wife Whitney, watch out, because then that shit is going to get really epic.